Hi, this is my final presentation for the Active Learning Institute from spring of 19. And I'm going to apply this to a Psychology 101 class that's online. So this is going to be interesting because it's harder to do the active learning. So I'm going to have to create active learning exercises online that they can do independently and then discuss those active learning activities that help provide some of the benefits of active learning. So when I'm looking at Psych 101, I'm going to focus on the memory section, which is actually chapter 6, but which I've decided based on this institute to teach first because I think it is such a key foundation for so much of not only psychology, but for their success in college. So I think this might really benefit them. So two of my summative assessments for this chapter on memory. First of all, there's a mnemonics paper where students will define what a mnemonic device is and what the major principles are and how that relates to our long-term memory. They will also give examples of specific mnemonic techniques, and they will have to give examples of at least 3 different specific mnemonics and why they think those mnemonics would work for them. And then finally, they will need to use one or more of those mnemonic devices that they talk about for 20 actual concepts from the class. So if they chose, for example, to use the narrative, they would actually have, which is a story method, they would actually have to write a story that included 20 concepts. Or they could do one story that included 10 concepts and then maybe use a different mnemonic device like an acronym for the others and then explain the acronym and what the concepts mean. Then, of course, I will also have standard exams, and we have Think Like a Scientist activities that are provided by the publishers. And those Think Like a Scientist activities are really nice because that is an attempt to apply the material. So that's one place where I can give them some application examples. The outcomes that I've chosen to focus on for this particular chapter, 2 are from the system and 1 is mine. So the 2 that come from the system that relate back to this area are outline memory and forgetting and the application of memory skills to life. Write and speak clearly about psychology. Since the paper is in here, I would like that to happen, and also through our discussions. And then utilize, this is the one that I came up with, utilize the information about memory that you have about memory from the chapter, from the mini lectures, from the videos that I posted online, and use that information to improve your study habits and learn new techniques. So that will be not only through the discussion boards, but also from the material that they're reading on their own and reviewing on their own. So here's an example of what this 2-week time period would look like where we're covering memory. First, each week they would be asked to, before they even, my hope is kind of like before they come to class, before they start interacting on the discussion board, etc., that they read the chapter or the portions of the chapter that are assigned, and that they complete these learning curve quizzes, which are adaptive quizzes that are on the publisher's site. And so these are really cool quizzes because if they don't understand short-term memory, for example, and they get a question wrong, it will take them back and give them more questions about short-term memory until they come up with, and it seems like they've mastered the subject. In addition, every time they get something wrong or anytime they would like, they can also, after each question, click on one section which takes them directly to the ebook and shows them the area of the ebook where that topic is covered. The other thing that it does is it takes them to additional resources. So they have videos that explain things in more depth. They have activities, other kinds of activities, like if we're doing the history, they have a timeline set up that you can drag and drop and fill things in on. So it provides them with other ways that they can learn the material. So I really like that, and I think that is in sync with active learning, though it's on their own instead of with groups. The other thing that I would have them do is make sure that they complete some activities each week. And one of the activities that I have found that is really cool is written by psychologists, and it's talking about how to study for classes. And it's talking about the distributive practice and the elaborative rehearsal and so on and so forth. But it's actually using that in the context of making good note cards. So in this PowerPoint, you actually students they talk about unpacking concepts and understanding all the key aspects of it and how you break down your concepts, and then they show you how to make a note card that actually has it's not just a rote definition, but it has your ideas of definition, how you understand that material better, and so forth. Then it's not only do you do the definition, but that is, as we know from Bloom's taxonomy at the beginning, you have to understand the concept before you can do anything else. And then the second part is where they have students create additional flashcards for each concept, and those additional flashcards include an example from the textbook or an example from class, and then finally it has them give an example from their real life of when that topic has impacted them. So if we were talking about short-term memory, and we might be talking about the duration of short-term memory, they could actually give an example from the textbook of when someone has forgotten something or lost something from short-term memory so quickly, and then finally they could give an example of them of their own experience and when they have lost important information, like maybe sometimes on a test because it didn't make it to long-term memory. Then also they will be completing discussions, and I think this is going to have to be the heart of this class. In the past, I've had a single discussion question. They were worth about 10%. I'm thinking about making this worth a whole lot more and actually hoping that we can engage students for, the standard 3 hours a week on the actual discussion board. I'm hoping to make discussion groups and have these discussions be reflections of the applications that they've done on their own, so that this is the time for students to come together and say, I did that flashcard activity. I really liked that flashcard activity. I'm going to set up a study blue room where I can make it for my class and my class only, and they can share the note cards that they made with the definitions and the examples so that their group can look at those and compare and contrast what they did and see what they think about it. Also, there's an eyewitness testimony activity, and they actually watch a short video and then they answer questions about what happened during the car crash, and then their discussion would be talk about memory construction and how oftentimes we incorporate things into our memories that are not exactly accurate, and they would talk about how they did on the quiz of the eyewitness testimony and go on and discuss how that relates to the concepts. They would also, in their last discussion, start work on that paper by describing the mnemonics and actually using them, but only with a few concepts where the paper will ask for 20. Their practice will come through the learning curve quizzes. It will come through the flashcard activity. It will come through the discussions. They will review the activity, share their flashcards, share their quiz results, and so forth. The eyewitness testimony activity also will help them discuss concepts associated with memory, as I've already said. They'll discuss the use of mnemonics for 5 concepts in class, and that would also be in the discussion. And then Lastly, I believe is formative assessment. They would get their score on the adaptive quizzes. They'll get discussion feedback from me and from their peers, and I'm going to be very specific in my rubric about what kind of feedback I'm looking for. And I will go into each group and I will make sure that I read all of them and that they're all understanding the concepts, and I'll look at those example mnemonics and so forth. I also think that they'll be getting formative assessment by reviewing other people's posts. So to me, if they don't quite understand a topic, and by the way, I'm not going to let them look at anyone else's post until they've put in their original post. So they're forced to struggle with that concept and struggle with that first on their own. And then when they go in and look at other people's, they can get new ideas and new perspectives and maybe elaborate or clarify some of the points that they did not understand so well. And that's it. And I'm at 10 minutes and 41 seconds, almost perfect. Okay, thanks, you guys. Bye.